So hi, Graham. How are you today?
I'm good this morning, Danielle. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for joining us for our first edition of Digital Futures. Before we kick it off, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about who you are, Graham, and about your company, Sloan Valve Company.
I'm Graham Allen. I'm the president and CEO of Sloan Valve Company. I'm actually co-president and co-CEO. It's a family business that I'm involved with my two older brothers and my dad. We're a fourth generation, 115-year-old manufacturing business in the commercial plumbing space. We make commercial flush valves and faucets, soap dispensers, hand dryers, sink systems, china labs and stuff, but most people know us for our chrome-plated Sloan Royal flush valve that men stare at every time they use a commercial bathroom in a school or an airport or stadium or any commercial facility they're in. They stare at our brand their whole lives. So a lot of men know Sloan and Sloan Royals. Women have their back to us, so they don't know our
Right.
brand name too much. But we're the valve you either kick or flush on your way out of a commercial stall in the space, or and sensor-operated faucets and soap dispensers.
Nice, nice. So give people who may be less familiar with Sloan a little bit about the scale of Sloan. So you told me a little bit about how you guys are in every continent and represent an incredibly large percentage of the commercial fixture space.
Yeah, true. We were founded in Chicago, Illinois in 1906 by my great-grandfather, William Elvis Sloan. So Elvis is a family name, and yet I still got Graham. I'm not sure how that happened, but
Name like a kid, Elvis, I think.
at least throw a middle name in there. He started it in Chicago in 1906, and that year he was changing the paradigm of flushing systems in buildings from the old tank toilets that were mounted high above a toilet fixture with a long pole chain like you've seen in the movies,
Yep, absolutely.
flushing an enormous amount of water. Yeah, in The Godfather, he tapes the gun behind the tank in the Italian restaurant, which is an obscure reference, I guess, for some. But he was competing with that technology. That wasted a ton of water. It took forever to refill. They're dangerous to work on, have to get on ladders and such. So his invention would rapidly cycle using the line pressure of the plumbing system. And he started that in Chicago. In his first year of business, he sold one flush valve. But the great success story is that in his second year of business, sales grew 100%. He doubled his sales in one
Two.
year to two flush valves. And the rest, as they say, is history. Some hiccups obviously during World War One, the Great Depression, World War II, things like this. But even during those times, he spread internationally. Asia was an early market, international market, in addition to Canada and Mexico. But Asia, I was looking at old brochures listing the countries of distribution, and it said, Siam. So it just dates, this is before
Right.
certain countries were named. So he was selling internationally back a long, long time ago. And Asia, not much of a footprint in Europe, but some sales into Europe, Africa, and even Antarctica. I have a friend that's quite the world explorer. He's in the skydiving industry, and he skydives all over the world. And he got the opportunity to travel to Antarctica, and there's a research station down there, as you know. And he took a photo of the bathroom in the research center in
Love it.
and it had a Sloan Royal, and we thought about making an advertisement around it when it absolutely positively has to work, when you can't get another flush valve for 14,000 miles, choose Sloan Royal. But every continent, and the United States still our major market with our dominant market share, but we're global, certainly.
I love that. So you have got to be one of the few companies that is on all seven continents. And I think part of why I'm really excited to hear more about your perspective is because of that national and global footprint. Tell me, what interesting trends are you noticing in the built environment?
Well, the trends domestically differ, considerably more. They differ considerably from the international market in certain areas where we're strong. In the domestic environment, Obviously, the sustainability movement is strong and popular and not going anywhere anytime soon here. And it is surprisingly strong, even in the developing nations. But here, the shift to not only sustainably operating products, but sustainably manufactured products. So people not only want to know that our products save water in our case, but are made in a responsible manner, and that's with product declarations and transparency reports, and we try to do that. So people are getting smarter about the products they buy, and we think that's a good thing. I can't remember what company it is; it might even be an investment firm, but they said, an educated customer or an educated client is our best customer, something like that. And I thought it was really, the right idea. The smarter our customers get, I think, the better for Sloan Valve Company, because they understand here that a domestic manufacturer trying to be as responsible and abiding by all the regulations and advancing the cause in a lot of environmental aspects has a strong suit. We see it as a competitive advantage, and the smarter people get on that, we think the better, because we're the only domestic manufacturer of our product lines, which is great. So the sustainability aspect, the connectivity, the Internet of Things, bright green buildings, having some sort of communication, having some sort of management systems of water is obviously developing faster here in the United States. For a long time, energy has been the sole focus. You have building management systems that focus on energy conservation, and water, even in the LEED program for many years, was such a small component. You got so few points for the water portion of LEED. We've since worked with the organization and enhanced that. But the importance of water and energy, people failed to recognize that nexus appropriately for a long time. And now they understand the energy component of water. You have to transport it, purify it, heat it, pressure it, purify, clean it on the way out. It requires a lot of energy. So water and energy certainly do combine. In the international market space, we're seeing a lot, but the lines are often blurred in the international market space. Here in the United States, commercial is commercial and residential is residential, and seldom the twain shall meet. It does not occur. You don't see residential products in commercial spaces for good reason. People do extraordinarily strange things in commercial bathrooms, and if you're putting delicate delicate residential products in there, they're not going to last long, and that's certainly unfortunate, but it is what it is. So a lot of times our products, though viewed as utilitarian in nature, they're like that for a reason. You don't know who has to service them. They have to hold up. And the international market, however, those lines are a little bit blurred. India, for example, even in Asia, where vandalism is not as big a concern, aesthetics and appealing to the design community is a lot more important. But India is a unique market for us, and their commercial and residential almost have no differentiation. There's 70% of India still doesn't have indoor plumbing residentially, so that's one big reason. So what they're putting in is commercial products. So we need to dance a different dance over there, but it's unique and interesting.
So you have a lot of challenges, I think, playing in that global landscape. I'd love to dig into a couple things that you said. Tell me more about this IoT realm. So what sort of aspects are you focused on connecting? What are you trying to measure? How are you using that to improve? Dig in a little bit further.
Well, you just touched on all the points. The IoT, the Internet of Things, and the connected nature of devices has certainly exploded in popularity, and almost to the point of it just being connected for the sake of being connected. People have internet connected toasters and coffee machines and things that I don't understand the value in. It's a neat thing, and no offense if anybody likes those sorts of things. But technology for technology's sake is something that we've struggled with. We've pursued connected devices for a long time. We've had it To be honest, our first foray into communicating connected devices was in the prison market. And we introduced a connected system in there because prisoners that are locked in their cells for 23 hours a day have very little to do other than flush the toilet over and over and over again, and flush odd things down the toilets, flood their cells, creating a hazard. They get out for a few hours. They communicate through the pipes and everything in unique and interesting ways. So giving prison control of the cells when they can and can't flush the toilets. They always have access to fresh water. Should somebody need to drink water, you can do that. But they can, if they're gonna, I don't want to get too far down the prison aspect. It is interesting. That's a whole podcast in itself, I think. But anyway, so we've been doing that for 30 years. That was with Twisted Pair. Now it's wireless communication. And our belief is the same as everybody else's. You can't manage what you don't monitor. And so giving facilities the ability to tell which of their products, be it our faucets or flush valves, or even our soap dispensers and hand dryers, frequency of use allows for predictive maintenance. It allows for alerts. We can notify a serviceman that rather than going through every bathroom in this convention center, flushing every toilet before you find the one that may not be working or one that has an issue, you can get an alert. So we want people to be better informed and more efficient with their services. Some have said, well, I still don't see the value proposition. Are you going to give me this information for free? Or is it part of the component? Are you going to sell me this information that a lot of other companies do? They collect analytics of various sorts and then they sell that information.
Right.
So good business model. And so we're pursuing sort of an all of the above strategy where we've had on the market Bluetooth connected faucets. So rather than a commercial plumber getting down on his knees and monkeying with our faucets and our control modules in the spout or under the sink, he can connect one-to-one with a faucet or a flush valve, diagnose a problem, see how often it's been used, how many gallons of water it's been used, and there's sort of inferential information you can glean from that. This faucet's been used 15 times more than this one. Maybe something's wrong with this one.
Right.
In one instance, we found out that they had a bathroom attendant that, sometimes in men's room, I would assume in ladies' rooms, they have a bathroom attendant that in clubs or bars or restaurants, sometimes he hands you a towel or gives you a mint or, spritzes you with cologne or whatever the heck they used to do. And we found out that faucet was never being used, and they determined it's because that's where the bathroom attendant sits.
Right.
So it's sort of, there's interesting information to be gleaned, as I said, but some have said, while that is interesting, they sometimes still struggle to put a dollar value on it. That's great to know. Why would I want to pay more for it? And that's where working with our partners comes in handy. To have close relationships with facilities, be that airports or stadiums or schools or anything, to get that information. Casinos have been an early adopter of this connectivity because they do see a dollar value on it. Steve Wynn famously has a dollar value attributed to every component in his hotel, which you'd have to get in his mind to differentiate or to identify where he's connecting it. But a dirty ashtray has a gaming value in his casino. A faucet that doesn't work has a gaming value in his casino. A clogged toilet in a guest room certainly has a gaming value on his casino. He's decided that that's the biggest. A clogged toilet in a casino hotel bathroom, the guest will also often be embarrassed, sometimes check out rather than call for a maintenance issue, all these sorts of things.
So, maybe not come back. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And if that's a whale, as they call them, the big gamblers in Vegas, that's a big deal. So he's hyper aware of these things, as are others in casinos. So you find these guys and girls that find the early information, that find the value in it. We work with them to see what they need, and the hope is that the market comes to us, that people do understand. I want to know my water usage. McDonald's may want a national platform. I want to know what stores are using how much water, why, what's the difference in these locations, and how can they best manage those systems. So it'll be interesting, but we have the technology there when they're ready.
I think a lot of owners of real estate assets that is top of mind for sure, right? Mm-hmm. How do you understand your physical assets through a digital space? right? How do you learn and improve based on data and measurement? Where should real estate owners, in your opinion, that are sort of grappling with this issue, like where should they start? What questions should they start asking, right? You can go down a rabbit hole of measuring everything and connecting everything. You kind of mentioned that before. I had a connected like floss dispenser for a while. Not sure that added value in my life, right? So you can definitely go down the rabbit hole of IoT of everything. Where do you think real estate owners should start?
Well, I think they have to identify a pain point if they have one in this area. I hate to be a solution in search of a problem for everybody, and trying to sell something to somebody that doesn't need it and doesn't want it is something that doesn't sit well with me. So if they identify a pain point, and connectivity, communication, management, information will help them address a problem. I know sub-metering in multifamily residential is an issue and difficult, and water meters are expensive, and how do you sub-meter? And there's retail facilities on the first floor that are using this much water, and the residential units above them are using a fraction of that. How do you break these things all out and fairly utilize? But so there's components of that. But I wouldn't say to any, a blanket statement that to every real estate operator in the country, oh, you need Bluetooth connected faucets, you need IoT connected flush valves in every facility, because in actuality you likely don't. But if you have a pain point and you think that information would benefit you, at least look into it. And that's something we're also finding more of. I don't know if I'm answering a question you haven't asked, but for 110 years of our 115 years, we sell our products. We advertise to the built environment and to our channel partners, wholesale distributors, mechanical contractors, plumbing engineers. And for 100 years, those were pretty much the only folks that knew or cared about our products. But now the decision on flush valves, faucets, things like this are being moved upstream, in some people's perspective, to interior designers and even architects. So educating them on these things, it's a whole new market for us. Before, you walk into an architect with a Sloan flush valve in your hand, he's going to tell you to get the hell out of his office.
Right.
But now this information is important to them. Aesthetics are taking on a whole new level of importance. Things before, this is a pressurized plumbing system. It's an engineered level system that needs that professional level. Well, now that professionalism is table stakes. So everybody assumes that, yes, you meet all the codes and standards and the performance capability, whether you do or you don't. In a lot of the cases, companies don't, but they kind of assume that you do. So they let the designers and the architects choose what looks pretty, what goes with their style. So we have to kind of shift, again, away from that utilitarian style that plumbing engineers knew and loved, contractors knew and loved, wholesale distributors knew and loved, and we have to appeal to a whole new set. So in the real estate market, getting the interior designers and the architects to help select these items is new for us, and I think it's new for all real estate people. And we do webinars on it, and we do educate them. We're coming to meet them with the aesthetics, and they're coming to meet us with some of the more technical know-how. So we've had a nice little marriage of new industries in our perspective in the real estate area.
Nice. So you bring up having to shift, right? And I think that's a good segue to a topic I wanted to dig into, because there's a big shift happening in our world right now. And, at the forefront of nearly every conversation I have in the real estate and construction sector is COVID-19.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people might not totally realize this, but Sloan is really at the forefront of the built environment's response to COVID. Hands down, what I've seen, one of the first changes being made in our office buildings, in our airports, entertainment complexes, is touchless fixtures. And you're really at the forefront of that. And I think if we look at Sloan's history, sort of this idea of like being on the front lines is in your DNA. You've told me a story about how during World War II, Sloan changed the factory to manufacture brass artillery components and shipborne
Yeah.
valves. And now you're on the front line again with the world's response to COVID. So I'd love to hear from you what you're doing right now to lead that response, what sort of changes you're seeing.
Well, I think the changes we're seeing are exactly what you pointed out. The transition to no touch fixtures, faucets, soap dispensers, hand dryers, etc., is seeing unprecedented demand from ours. We've been in the no touch, starting with faucets and flush valves, obviously, since the mid 70s. 1974, I think, was our first sensor operated faucet installation at O'Hare Airport. And those were the old, what we call body bounce sensors. You'd walk up to the sink and it would turn on, and that kind of taught the American public sensor faucets.
Okay.
And so we've been in it for a long time. And then in the 90s, we got into the battery operated. So we've been building these things, and people came to us and said, you need a manual faucet line to fill out your commercial offering. And we said, we're focused on sensor. We think this is the right thing to do. It applies to ADA concerns, cross-contamination concerns, building image, cleanliness, water conservation, obviously. So we decided decades ago to stay laser focused on just the sensor offerings in that regard. And so when the COVID-19 situation arose, the market, again, further came to no-touch products. They'd been around, but now every facility, the first thing they do before they have employees back in their offices, as you said, is
Absolutely.
switch their products to no-touch. So if before in a commercial environment, sensor to manual was 20/80, maybe 10/90 in some places, 70/30, or there was a big gap in sensor versus manual faucets. That is certainly shrinking, and we think is going to sway stronger to the sensor side. So obviously our breadth of sensor offerings, I think we offer more sensor faucets than all our competition combined. So we have prepared the company and positioned the company for this very moment for decades. That doesn't mean that this unprecedented demand hasn't stretched our global supply chain in extraordinary fashion.
Yeah, sure.
So it's been a difficult thing, but we understand this is not a blip. This is a sea change. People are not going to want to touch things in commercial bathrooms, period. People never did before, but they just
We never did.
But as you said, we're kicking things, we're elbowing things, we're doing, with pavement and stuff. They're also not going to want to stand in crowded bathrooms at airports. They're not going to want to stand in crowded bathrooms at stadiums. So we have stall open availability indicator lights. Tush lights is an interesting name, but it kind of came
Tush
from
lights. So I've never heard that before.
Tush light. You'll hear about it. The inventor that we partnered with, his daughter's nickname was Tush, and it just kind of seemed like a
Makes sense.
product, but. Yeah, there'll be a red and green light. Primarily, the issue is in women's rooms where you have long rows of 20 stalls, and you play the little game where you're pushing on doors or peeking under stalled doors to see if there's somebody in there. We want that to go away, so we're technology to do that. And displaying when a bathroom's crowded, when it's full, how full it is, are the faucets full? Because people are not going to want to be in the crowded bathroom, period. And they're certainly not going to want to go in there just to wash their hands. So bringing the hand washing to bringing the hand washing to the concourses of airports, to the halls of schools, to the lines at quick serve restaurants, these sorts of things, in some unique ways that I can tell you about after they hit the market. But we just see a paradigm shift, particularly in the area of healthy hands, being something that will be from now and forever in the American and the global consciousness. So we tend to cater to that. We intend to cater to that and bring the healthy hands to them.
That's really interesting, because I think most people right now are seeing touchless and sort of thinking that that's the end all be all response to COVID. But you're envisioning there's a bigger picture there, right? Like the way we view bathrooms is fundamentally changing, and what we do in the bathroom is changing. And some of the stuff that we do, like washing our hands, is moving outside of the bathroom.
Correct. And that while, I mean, I can lay out a little bit of the doomsday scenario is if people are going to go into commercial bathrooms, stadiums, schools, anywhere, you have to make it as cleanly and healthful and no touch as possible. But should things get worse, obviously as a business owner, I tend to operate a little bit with the sword of Damocles over my head, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like what's going to screw this all up?
Yeah.
And while a pandemic currently, I don't want to sound opportunistic, has been fortuitous in terms of the increased sales of our touch-free sensor products, if it continues, if it were to get worse, what is the likelihood that there is no such thing as 40,000 people in a stadium anymore? There is no, people are not in airports and traveling, and commercial environments are not going into offices, and office buildings slow down, or the density, shifts, and fewer people means fewer bathrooms, and all, the brave new world sort of scenario in which we all telecommute and work from home, and the need for commercial products in general is eliminated. Will that ever happen 100% in the United States? I certainly hope not. I think we're social creatures and we'll always tend to gather. But we have to be aware of these things and, be profitable at any scale and innovate, continue to innovate at any scale. We are not a fast follower company. It's a very expensive strategy for us. It's a very risky strategy for us, but it's something we have in our DNA, and it's unusual. People tell us, man, 115-year-old entrenched, plumbing companies aren't typically the innovation leaders, and you guys continue to be. So it's neat, it's fun, it's risky, it's expensive, but it's something we choose to do. Our competition follows fast, and that's a strategy, and it's effective. It's just not ours. So you'll see a lot more stuff in the COVID response from Sloan in the weeks, certainly in the months and years to come.
Well, I'll keep an eye out for sure. And I love that Sloan, over the 115 years, has been able to stay true to your inventor roots, right? You started with your great-grandfather's invention of the Royal Flush Valve. So that's great. I think before we wrap up, I'd love to just hear from you, vision for the next 25 years. How are you going to change? How is Sloan going to change? What are we going to see in the world?
Well, the short answer is stay tuned on some of that in terms of product technology. But I do see, I see Sloan expanding even further globally. I see us becoming a more recognized international brand. We've been working to bridge the gap between Sloan and the consumer. It's a bit of a head scratcher to some. We're business to business, as I've kind of explained. A contractor is building it. John Q. Public or Joanne Q. Public can't just go in and buy a Sloan flush valve. So I don't need to advertise to, everybody. But we want Sloan not to be a second reminder brand. People say Sloan. I feel like I know that. How do I know that?
Right.
I say, when you're standing at a commercial journal or lab, you see our brand and they go, oh yeah, that's right. I've seen that my whole life. So everybody's a one-time reminder, recognition of the brand name. So we want to bridge that gap a little bit, just to make the brand a little bit more of a household name. I don't think that can be a bad thing for us, but expanding internationally, again, in the markets like India and Asia, North Africa. Europe is fairly entrenched with domestic brands, and they have different technologies over there that we can really struggle to reinvent for them. But growing internationally with the market share, Sloan over our history has enjoyed, anywhere from 60 to 90% market share in the products that we offer, and sort of battle it out for the remaining 15, 10, 5% in any given market is expensive and difficult, whereas there's other opportunities for us around the globe, other product offerings, expanding. Our core focus is the commercial bathroom, so we're going to dominate that area first as best we can. If and when we expand outside that with different product offerings, we will. But the day we hope will, when an interior designer or an architect's designing a building, they just draw the box for the men's and women's restrooms or the gender inclusive bathroom, and just write Sloan on it, and
There you go.
we come in and take care of the rest for them. So expanding the brand recognition, explaining our tradition of quality, innovation, and efficiencies, and helping the world, the developing nations, meeting them halfway. They can't all afford sensor operated products, so we need to make sure that we can bring sanitation and healthy indoor plumbing to the world.
I love that. Well, thanks so much, Graham. I enjoyed getting to virtually sit down with you today.
I enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to the day where we can get together in person. But thanks for your time. This was really great.
Anytime. Thanks, Danielle.
Graham. Bye.
Bye.